One, two, three, go. Good morning, class. Today we are going to learn about fractured fairy tales. Our aim today is how can we create a fractured fairy tale. Your do now is to make a list of your top 5 favorite fairy tales. Just any fairy tales you could come up with on the top of your head. Write down on your papers. I'll give you 2 minutes on the clock. Okay. What's the fairy tale you wrote down, Jimmy? Okay, let's write that on the board. You said Cinderella. How about you, Jennifer? Okay, we have Hansel and Gretel. Some other examples could be the 3 Little Pigs, Snow White, Beauty and the Beast, Rapunzel, right? Raise your hand if you're familiar with at least one of these fairy tales. Okay, great. So we all know what a fairy tale is. By definition, a fairy tale is a children's story that uses magic in its plot and its characters. There's some element of magic in it. So here's some other examples. Little Red Riding Hood, Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, Beauty and the Beast, I said, The Frog Prince, Jack and the Beanstalk. Here's some pictures to look at. Let's review story elements. What are the parts of every story? So we have characters, right? Character is a story element. Someone in the story. It could be a person, an animal, an enchanted tree could be a character. So a primary character in a fairy tale is the hero, the one who's going to save the day. So what would the opposite of the hero be? The bad guy, the villain, right? The evil one. So that would be character number 2. The villain who wants to harm or get in the way of our hero. Now another story element is setting. Does anyone know what setting is from prior lessons? Right, the setting is when and where the story takes place. So the setting in a fairy tale is usually a long, long time ago in a faraway kingdom, right? Have you heard that phrase before? Okay. The conflict. What is the conflict of a story? Could I see hands? Okay, I'll call someone from my popsicle stick. Pamela. Do you know what a conflict means? Okay, right. The problem of a story. The main frustrating problem that the hero has to overcome. So the conflict in a fairy tale is usually the good versus evil, colliding, trying to get a rise. Who's going to win, the good one or the evil person? And the plot is the main idea of the story. And the main idea of a fairy tale always uses magic, like I said in the beginning. That's part of the definition of fairy tale. And the ending is the final story element we're going to discuss. The ending is also called a resolution because everything gets resolved, tied up neatly with a bow, if you've ever heard that expression. So the ending of a fairy tale is usually a reward or a transformation. Think of Beauty and the Beast. The ending, the beast transformed into a handsome prince. The 3 Little Pigs. The ending was the 3 Little Pigs got to live comfortably in their house, and the wolf, vanished or got burned in the pot, the boiling pot of water, whatever version you learned of that. Okay, speaking of versions of fairy tales, now we're going to go into the fractured part of it. So our aim is how can we create a fractured fairy tale? Now that we know what a fairy tale is and the story elements that fairy tales share, that are common amongst fairy tales, we could discuss how to create a fractured one. What's a fractured fairy tale? So does anyone know the definition of the word fractured? Think of a bone that you might have hurt. Did you ever hear of a fractured wrist, a fractured bone? So fractured is similar to broken, split into different pieces, fragmented. So I wrote broken, split, or fragmented into parts. So how could we apply that to the fairy tale context? A fractured fairy tale is a fairy tale broken up into parts and put back together again in a often funny, humorous way. So I'm going to read to you a fractured fairy tale now called The Dog Prince. Does that sound familiar to anyone? A little bit? A changed title? The Frog Prince, right? That's a classic fairy tale. As I read this book, I want you all to, if you can, think of the common story elements we discussed. Conflict, setting, character, plot, ending / resolution. Who's the character in the story? What what's the setting? What's the problem in the story that the main character needs to overcome? You could see she's a princess here. I mean, and let's see what happens. It's exciting. I love Fractured Fairy Tales because you never really know what the ending is going to be, what the characters are going to be like. They're going to break up the fairy tale and redo it in a new way that you've never encountered before. There we go. The Dog Prince. It even says here, A Fractured Fairy Tale Reader by Liza Charlesworth, illustrated by Stephen Wood. Once upon a time there lived a princess. She seemed to have the perfect life. She had a big castle, she had pretty clothes, she had a lot of toys. Okay, so already we have the setting, a kingdom. We don't know if it's far, far away exactly, but, well, this doesn't look like America, does it? But she had no one to play with. She was a very lonely princess indeed. One day she was playing with her golden ball when, whoops, plop, the ball fell into the pond. Oh no, how would she ever get it back? Her stick was too short. The water was too deep. From far away she heard a bark. It was a dog, a big, brown, scruffy dog. And guess what? He could talk. Would you like me to get your ball? He barked. Yes, please, she said. I will help you, he barked, but you must make 3 promises. First, you will feed me a treat. Second, you will play with me. Third, you will give me a great big hug. Okay, for the sake of time in this video, I'm going to flip a few pages. Basically, the princess is at first reluctant to comply with her promises, but then she reminds herself a promise is a promise. And she feeds the dog a fancy treat. He wolfs it down. Next, he has to play with her. That was part of the promise, and she plays with him. And through the playing, she actually enjoys it. She learns that she enjoys it, and she gives the dog a great big hug without even being asked from the dog first. Then what happens? Once she gives the hug, piff, poof, pum, the princess turned into a small, yellow, fluffy dog. Wow! Used to be a dog, too, said the big, scruffy dog, but a mean witch put a spell on you. She turned you into a lonely princess. Our hug just broke the spell. The small, fluffy dog wagged her tail. She chased the golden ball. Plop, it fell into the pond. This time she jumped into the water to get it herself. Splash, splash. Doggone it, it felt good to be a dog again. She wasn't lonely anymore. You are my best friend, she barked, but I still don't know your name. It's Prince, barked the big scruffy dog. Well, you can call me Princess, barked the small fluffy dog. Then Princess and Prince raced off into the sunset, and they howled happily ever after. Okay. I want you to take a few minutes to turn and talk to your elbow partner on the rug here. What are some fairy tale elements you noticed that were changed in this story? Think about princess and princesses, kingdoms, royalty, marriages. If anyone knows the plot of The Frog Prince, how was it changed here, aside from the obvious, which is the title, right? You could change the title of A Fractured Fairy Tale. Okay, 3 minutes later. Okay, now that you've all shared what you thought about this book, I want you to write on an index card I've placed on your desk. When I say go, you'll go back to your desks. You'll write on an index card 1 story element you can change about one of the fairy tales we have on the board. What I mean by that is, you'll choose a fairy tale that you're interested in, because this will be used for your creative writing project in future lessons. Choose a story element that you will change to start your Fractured Fairy Tale. It doesn't have to be a final effort, it's just an idea, brainstorming. Let's say, point to any. Okay, Goldilocks and the 3 Bears. I want to change story element, character number 1, the hero. Okay, well the bears are heroes in that story, so instead of bears, I'm going to make them geese. So it'll be Goldilocks and the 3 geese. Or it could be Goldilocks and the goose, and make the story similar but different, because you're going to fracture it. So write on your index cards 1 story element that you will change about 1 story. At the top of your index card, write your name. Underneath your name, write the title of the fairy tale, the classic fairy tale, the original. And underneath, write 1 change you would make in that fairy tale. For instance, Jack and the Beanstalk will become Jack and the Friendly Giant. Maybe you're going to change the evil villain in that story to be friendly, and then that changes some of the plot and the conflict. It could be more than 1 story element that ends up being changed. Okay, and last thought for the day, if anyone ever saw the movie Shrek, or Enchanted, or Ever After, these are examples of movies that, and they've been adapted into books that are also fractured fairy tales that you might be more familiar with. Okay, that's it.